thought baby gorillas were gonna be safe?
Alright, this is the third video in the mental progression series, and this is the second method that I use to apply the concepts that we learned in the first video. So for this video, I'm going to use this stride in the old gym as an example because I think it's a really good example of breaking down challenges. So looking at this stride, the reason I think it's a good example is because just about everyone who ever came into the gym had a goal of doing it, but almost no one ever did it. And it wasn't because they weren't capable of doing it, but it's because they didn't have a process to build themselves up to it. So what you usually see with a challenge like this, especially when it's something like a stride where you have limited control, limited bail options, and especially when it's at height and there's a perception of risk there, is you'll see people come in and they'll try to hype themselves up to do this challenge, but they'll be looking at the challenge as a whole, just one big thing. And they'll try to hype themselves up and go for it, and they won't go, and they'll try to commit like 20 times and then they'll stop, and then they'll go back to their normal training. So their normal training is like at this level, this is what they're comfortable with, and then the stride as a whole is like right here. So you can't train here every day and then come in the next day and try to jump levels like this. It just doesn't work, which we've already talked about in the other videos. So if I go down to ground level and I train strides on like precision trainers all day, and then I go up to something that's over my head height on a thin square where I can only fit one foot on it, and then I try to go and stride it, even though I'm terrified of it, I'm probably just not going to commit. Now every once in a while, you'll see someone like put the headphones in, get super hyped up, and take off on the drop of a song, and they might commit that one time. Usually what happens after that is they come back the next day and they're still just as scared as ever because they did it that one time, and they don't do it again for months and months and months, and then 3 months later they'll come back and be like, oh, I should do this stride again. And then they're just as scared as they were the first time, and they have to go through the whole process again, and they have to hype themselves up, and a lot of times they can't even commit for it again. So what you did is you had a temporary level jump because you hyped yourself up so much and you got so much adrenaline pumping, and then because you didn't train at that new level, because you just temporarily jumped levels, you actually plateaued and went right back to where you were, and now you're just as scared as you were in the first place. And this is what I saw pretty much every day in the gym. There were now 2 different gyms with 3 different stride setups just like this one, and I saw the same thing on all of them because it was a really big goal for most people in the gym. It was a really nice challenge, and I saw the same thing every day. People would just come in, hype themselves up, not commit, not commit, not commit. Every once in a while, someone would finally hype themselves up enough to go for it, and then they wouldn't do it again for months, and they'd just be scared again. So let's talk about a better way to get through these types of challenges. So instead of climbing up there and looking at the stride as a whole and then just trying to hype ourselves up to commit for this entire thing all at once, what we want to do is break this thing down into pieces. With big scary challenges, especially challenges that are really complex or have a lot of parts to them or that have a lot of risk, what we want to do is to break them down into manageable pieces that provide enough anxiety to overload your mental game without creating so much anxiety that you fail to progress. So with the stride, how do we do that? Instead of looking at the whole big picture of the running stride, pre, we just want to look at the first column. And for some people, you might be scared of running cat it, some people might be scared of running pre it, some people might be okay with the running pre, but they're scared to stride it. So if we're looking at just the first column, just that first little gap, let's imagine that doing a running cat, it's too easy, it's boring, and it doesn't challenge us. So it's not going to help us progress. But let's say that the running pre is scary and mentally challenging. It causes a little bit of anxiety, but I can still commit for it. It causes a tiny bit of anxiety. I'm a little bit stressed about it, but I can still go for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work myself into the running pre. Maybe I'll run and cat it a couple times, maybe I'll bounce it back, and then work my way up to the top, whatever you need to do to get there. Once I do that, I'll finally hit the running pre, and then I'm going to drill that running pre. And just like in the other videos, just like we talked about before, you're going to do that running pre until it becomes boring. And when I come in the next day to the gym, or if this is a challenge that's outside, the next day I go to that spot, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to do that running pre again. I'm going to do it over and over and over until that pre becomes boring. So depending on the person, it might take you 3 days of drilling this challenge to drill it into boredom, or you might need to come back to this spot, in this case that running pre from the pit to the first column, and you might need to do that every day that you're there for 2 weeks just drilling it over and over and over until you make it so boring that it doesn't challenge you anymore. So that depends on the person. So let's say it takes us 2 weeks. We're going to come in there and we're going to be patient, and every day that we go in there, we're not going to test the jump anymore. We're not going to build up to it anymore. We're just going to do the running pre. And then we're going to drill it. For 2 weeks, you're going to come in there and that's all you're going to drill in relation to this challenge, and then you're going to go about your other training. After 2 weeks, you've probably drilled it into the boredom category. It's not challenging anymore. It's not scary anymore. So now what do? We look at the running pre. It's boring now. But if we want to plow out, say the plow out now is what's scary, but we can commit for it. Stride out still way too much anxiety, too much stress, so we can't stride out yet. But we can plow out. We can commit for it even though we're scared. So the next step is to run, plow out to the next one. Do whatever you need to do to build up to the plow pre. And then you might need to sit there and drill that running plow pre to the next wall for another 2 weeks. And it might take 2 weeks before that thing becomes boring. Or it might take 2 days, or it might take 2 months. You're just going to have to be patient and drill until it becomes boring. Now after you get through that running plow pre and that becomes boring, then what you're going to do is, because it's in the boredom category and it doesn't do anything for you anymore, you need to find the next level that induces enough anxiety to overload you without creating so much that you fail to progress. So the next step will probably be stride pre. So you just go running, stride pre. And then that'll probably be scary, but you'll be able to commit for it because you've drilled the plow into boredom. So now you drill that over and over and over, same process, wait until that's drilled into boredom, and then you might have to do running stride plow to the next column, and then drill that, and then maybe stride to the next column, and then drill that, and then it might be stride plow out, drill that, and then it might be stride, and you've done the whole thing. By the time you've broken down each piece of this challenge and drilled each piece from being in the anxiety category down to the boredom category, once you get to the very last piece, you're just going to be able to do it all because you've already drilled each piece into boredom. The last piece is just this little tiny bit of stress at the end that you have to add on, and that'll be the last piece of the puzzle. So at that point, you may have drilled running pre, running plow pre, running stride pre, running stride plow, running stride, and then at that point it's just running stride. You've only got one more piece to add, and you can apply this to pretty much any challenge you want to do, anything you find anywhere in a gym or outside. If you've got all these different parts, break down each piece and then drill them from anxiety down to boredom. So going back to the concepts from the first video and directly applying them to this method. Progressive overload. Look, if we get up on the pit and we look at the stride as a whole, and we're too scared to even do the first jump, but we're going to try to hype ourselves up for the stride. How's that any different than me getting 300 pounds on this bar and squatting it as a max and then trying to do 400 the next day? It's just not going to work. What will work is going up on that pit and doing the first piece and then drilling that to boredom, and then drilling the next piece and then drilling that to boredom, and then doing the next piece and drilling that to boredom. So it's a little bit bigger of a overload than the previous method where we had movable obstacles and we can move inch by inch. So you're actually going to be moving bigger gaps now because you can't move these obstacles, you can't move the stuff that you find outside, you can't move the permanent things in a gym. But it's still a type of progressive overload. The anxiety boredom spectrum, first time you get up on the foam pit for that challenge, or the first time you go to a challenge in one of the spots you train in. When you look at this big long stride mission, thinking about the entire thing, it's way too much stress, way too much anxiety, you can't even commit for it. But if we scale it back to that first running pre might be enough anxiety and stress to challenge you without being so much that you can't commit for it. Or you could be someone who the first running pre doesn't bother you and the first running plow doesn't bother you, but the running stride does bother you. So the pre and the plow might be too far in the boredom category to challenge you, so you can already skip past those. And then the first stride, the running stride pre to the first part, that might be enough stress to challenge you without being so much that you can't commit. So that might be where you start. You might just go running stride pre, and that might be your first one that you start drilling at. And then you just progress from there. Keep finding the next level, taking it from anxiety and pushing it down into boredom. And this could be with that stride or any challenge you find anywhere. The third concept, creating a new standard. So if we were too scared to do anything but the first running pre, where we're going to start is yesterday our standard was here. This is where our level was. This this is where the running pre was. It was just enough anxiety to challenge us, but we could still commit for it. So you're gonna do whatever you need to do to build up to it. Do your test jumps, bounce backs, whatever you need to do to warm up to that jump. And then you're going to do the running pre, and then you're gonna drill it, drill it, drill it. Now, when you come in the next day to train, your level doesn't go back down to here. You don't come back down here and then warm up to the jump again and do your test jumps and do all this stuff to build up to it again. You already achieved it. Now you have to trust your training. You have to trust your abilities. So you're going to do whatever you do to warm up in the spot you're training at or in the gym you're training at. And then once your body's warmed up, you're going to start right here at this level that you left off at. Instead of doing bounce backs and test jumps or whatever, you're just going to do the running pre. You're just going to, because you did it yesterday, so now it's time to trust yourself. Then you're going to drill it, drill it, drill it. Come in the next day, do the same thing. Just walk up there, do it. Come in the next day, walk up there, do it. Eventually it becomes boring. So now we've created a new standard right here. This is our new level. This is just the running pre. And we've drilled this into boredom, so we need to step up one more level. So we're going to go here. And this is going to be the running plow out. It might be running plow cat, might be running plow pre, depending on what scares you and what you're comfortable with. So you're going to find that next level. This is going to be, it's going to create a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of stress. You're going to be scared. It's going to be challenging, but you're still going to be able to commit. And then you're going to do whatever you need to do to build up to that next challenge. You're going to running pre, you might running pre, stop, and then do a standing cat. You might running plow cat. You might do some test jumps, whatever you're going to do to build up to it. And then eventually you're going to do the running plow pre. And it's going to be right here. If running plow pre is your next level. It could be running plow cat if that's your next level. We'll say running plow pre though. So you do the running plow pre, you're right here, you drill it. You come in the next day. When you come in the next day, you're not gonna restart by building up to everything again. You're not gonna build up to the running pre and then build up to the plow. What you're gonna do is, yesterday your level was running pre, now your level is running plow pre. So when you come in the next day, you're gonna start right here. As soon as you warm up, the first thing you're going to do when you go to this challenge, if it's the challenge on these strides, is you're going to go running plow pre. And then you're going to drill it. And then your next step up might be running stride pre. As soon as you step up to the next level, running stride pre, and then you drill it, then when you come in the next day, you're not going to do a bunch of test jumps to get there. You're just going to running stride pre. First thing you do. With no warm up, no practice, no building up to it, no test jumps, no bounce backs, none of that stuff. Your new level is running stride pre. And you just keep building those levels up. Every time you step up a level, you make it your standard. Every time you step up another level, make that your standard. And that's how we apply that last method. So I'll be coming out with one last video after this sometime soon. So watch out for that.